The history of Fenway Park, it has been going on for a long time. The Red Sox started playing here in 1918, sorry, 1912, but it goes back well before that. Actually, the Red Sox started playing baseball before they were even called the Red Sox. Way out on the Huntington Avenue ball grounds, now home of Northeastern University, a team called the Boston Americans got their start in 1903. They were called the Boston Americans since Boston was their home, and Americans was part of they were the first in the newly acquired American League. They went to the World Series that first year in 1903, and they won the World Series. It was a best-of-9 series against a team called the Pittsburgh Pirates. So, we won that first World Series. We continue to be a dominant team. We got ourselves some new uniforms. They came with tall red stockings. And the Boston Red Sox became the Boston Red Stockings originally. But that did not fit very well on the front of the jersey. And so the sports beat writers started calling them the Sox, which got shortened to SOX, which is how we got our name today. After the 1911 season, the park was so crowded, fans were going out and sitting on the field out there at the Huntington Avenue ball grounds, that it was time to find a new place to play baseball. So the owner at the time, John Taylor, purchased this very parcel of land in this very awkward location in the Fens area of Boston. Fens are marshlands, and that's why it is called Fenway Park. We played our first game on April 20th, 1912, against a team called the New York Highlanders. You don't have to know who they are, but you have to hate them. We beat those New York Highlanders 7-6 in extra innings, and they went so embarrassed that they went back to New York, and the next year renamed themselves the New York
Yankees.
Yankees, correct. So if you remember one thing from this tour and one thing only, we have been beating the Yankees since day one. The Red Sox didn't get nearly as much press that day, though, in 1912, because a little event had happened out at sea just days before. We didn't make the front cover. What happened in 1912?
Titanic.
That's right, the Titanic sunk. They stole our thunder that day. So we had to win the World Series in order to make the front page, and that's what we did in 1912. In order to keep winning, we went out in 1914 and acquired ourselves a very talented left-handed pitcher by the name of George Herman Ruth. You may know him better as Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth pitched us to 3 more World Series in 1915, 1916, 1918. And then we decided we were doing so well, we won so many World Series, it would let some other teams win, and we took a 5-10, 86-year hiatus from winning until we won the World Series again in 2004. Now, Babe Ruth comes with quite a story here at Fenway Park. You've probably heard of the curse of the Bambino. Babe Ruth heads to New York City. We start losing. Things are terrible. We had to wait 86 years to break that curse. I'd like to set the record straight for you all, folks. It's not the curse of the Bambino. We have quite a lot of love for Babe Ruth here at Fenway Park. It's the curse of Harry Frazee. Harry Frazee was the owner of the Boston Red Sox at that time, and Mr. Frazee did not love baseball nearly as much as his other passion, Broadway musicals. So Mr. Frazee decided he wanted to invest in a musical called No, No, Nanette. Has anyone heard of it? Right, just about the same amount of people who saw it at that time. He in order to be able to finance No, No, Nanette, he had to come up with some money. So he sold Babe Ruth for $100,000 to those notorious New York Yankees. But he didn't stop there. He sold off 15 of his other players from that World Series team, 14 of them going to the New York Yankees for $25,000. So he has $125,000. You'd think that he would invest it back into the club, but no, he spent all of his money on No, No, Nanette, which went nowhere, and the poor Red Sox went down the tubes. In the 1920s, we were the worst team in baseball. We came in last 8 times. The other 2 years, a whopping second to last. Things were not looking good here. There was no money to do anything to keep the ballpark going. You look down here along the left field line, those red seats that wrap around. Back in the 20s, those were actually wooden bleacher seats. People were allowed to smoke here at Fenway Park. We had a fire in those seats. The bleachers went up in flames. And there was no money to fix the ballpark. So the owner took a big piece of rope, roped it off, and sat ashes for years to come. The only advantage being that the outfielders were allowed to jump the rope and field in those all that soot and cinder. It was a really dark time. But then out of that, a light shined from North Carolina. I know I have a North Carolina person here today. Oh, maybe it was another car. A gentleman by the name of Thomas Austin Yawkey came up and decided he was going to buy himself a very expensive 30th birthday present. He bought himself Fenway Park and the Boston Red Sox for $1.2 million. And he decided he was going to keep it here. This was the Great Depression. Mr. Yawkey worked very hard to earn his money the old-fashioned way. He inherited every penny. So now it was time for him to put himself to work. And immediately he did. If he was going to be able to get some revenue out of this ballpark, he had to do some renovations. And much of what you see here today at Fenway Park is a 1934 ballpark. The first thing is, if you look out here, the seats that are covered up. If you look to the left or to the right over here, you see some blue seats. These seats wrap all the way around. Those are the original grandstand seats from 1934. Right now, those seats over here are our last phase of seat renovations. The original seats, they are being renovated, they're not being replaced. So those seats are getting a new coat of paint, new springs so that they stay, they're nice healthy seats, and the foundation's being refilled in. There's a lot of cracks in that foundation. The second thing Mr. Yawkey did was he connected the bleachers to the ballpark itself. Originally, those bleachers were standalone. So if you had a bleacher seat, you went into the bleachers and you didn't have access to the rest of the park. So if you wanted to get a hot dog, you had to pass your money across with the hopes that someone would come back with your hot dog and your change. So he connected those bleacher seats. But the third thing he did, and the most famous thing of all, out there in left field, folks, what is it? The Green Monster, 231 feet across, 37 feet high, the greatest overreaction in all of baseball. So what happened was, when Mr. Yawkey got here, and he knew he had to bring money in, he realized he needed to make friends with all the neighbors around here. Cars had recently come into the picture. Businesses were booming, and baseballs had changed. The weight of the baseball was a softball style, had recently changed into a hard ball, much like we have today. Balls were whizzing over a big dirt mound, called Duffy's Cliff, named after our outfielder who used to go up there and field balls amongst all the picnickers sitting out there. He couldn't catch them all anymore because the ball was moving too fast, and they were breaking windows. So Mr. Yawkey went out to meet the unhappy merchants and make friends and find out how much money he had to chip in. And what he found was something far more alarming than broken windows. He found people sitting on rooftops watching the game for free. Not good. How are you going to bring in any money? So up went a 37-foot wall with a giant net on it to catch all those balls. The net's not there anymore. I'll talk about that in a second. And the people came into the ballpark and money started coming in. So that's a little background of the beginning of Fenway